You're here today, live. You might not be here tomorrow. Live, you're here today.
He hit 1,540 golf balls in 7 hours. Golf Canada kicked him off their team for selling the 11 radios he won as amateur prizes. He sometimes shows up to an event in a dump truck, only to dominate his opponent in match play. He was paid $5,000 every single month, just for being who he was. He's the most interesting man in golf. He didn't swing, dress, or talk like anybody else, and wouldn't shape the ball using a fade or a draw. He would, however, accomplished some of the best ball striking feats in history. 17 hole-in-ones, 3 scores of 59, 33 course records, and according to the Double Eagle Club, he recorded 9 albatrosses in his career. Couple that with his unique personality, and you have a golfer the world had never seen before. His distinctive swing philosophy would create drama. Some claim it sucks. Others hold it up as the Holy Grail. Different instructors would teach his method, and one would even sue another over the right to use his name. He was immensely skillful with a golf club, though his life was far from easy. He would battle against his peers, the establishment, and deal with significant personal turmoil, all while mastering the swing. So much so that Tiger Woods put his name next to Ben Hogan. This is Moe Norman, the most interesting man in golf.
I didn't listen to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, but I still don't today. Because people don't know what they're talking about. There's no bad shots in my bag. If I did, I'll sell them. I only see good shots. That's all I see, good shots.
On a cold winter afternoon in 1935, a sled was racing down a snow-covered hill in the working-class town of Kitchener, Ontario. On it were 2 kids, Jimmy and his good friend, 5-year-old Moe Norman. At lightning speed, they flew down the street, over the bank at the road's edge, and right into a car. The sled vanished under the front wheels. Eventually, the 2 boys got out from underneath the vehicle and ran home. Everything from the outside seemed fine. Yet, this life event may have been much more severe than anyone could have known. People have always tried to figure out why Moe Norman was the way he was. For years, the default belief about Moe was that he was autistic, calling him the Rain Man of golf. However, years later, Dr. Daryl Treffert, a world-renowned psychiatrist on autism, said, "After months of research, I believe that Moe Norman was not autistic, but that he was an acquired savant." What is an acquired savant, you ask? It's a neurological condition stemming from an injury to the brain. Usually they display remarkable gifts in numbers, art, or music. In sporadic cases, do talents show up in athletics? Of course, Moe Norman turned out to be great at sports. From golf to being a legit hitter in baseball, and he was even excellent with numbers. The critical information for Dr. Treffert was family recollections of how Moe Norman's personality changed after he hit his head. His brother recalled that Moe started to act differently, such as repeating his words constantly. Still to this day, questions remain, but one thing is for sure. Whether it was from a brain injury, autism, or something else, Moe Norman was different. For instance, he started to develop a fascination for golf, even though his friends and father disapproved of it, telling him to stop playing that sissy game. His father Irwin hated golf so much that Moe hid his clubs under the porch where his dad couldn't reach them. But to Irwin's dismay, not only did Moe enjoy the sport, but he also became a caddy at Westmount Golf and Country Club. The most famous of his caddying stories is when he threw a rich man's golf clubs, known by all the caddies as a cheapskate, up in a tree after he gave him 2 quarters of pay for 18 holes. Because Westmount was a private course, and Moe could only play on Caddy's Day, the Rockaway Golf Public Course in Kitchener became his main practice place. Before rounds at Rockaway, he'd pull clubs out of his bag that he wouldn't use that day. The wind is blowing down number 6, so I don't need my 5 iron, and up 10, so I don't need my 4 iron. He knew the clubs he wouldn't use and took those out of his bag so they wouldn't weigh him down. The head pro was Lloyd Tucker, who produced many excellent golfers like Moe Norman, Jerry Kesselring, and 2-time U.S. amateur champion Gary Cowan. Since he was bullied, naturally he would shy away from situations where he could receive more abuse. The golf course provided Moe with a safe place. His sister once commented that they didn't see much of him once he found golf. He was either working at the bowling alley as a pin setter, at one of his factory jobs, or on the course. By age 16, Norman's golf game differed from where he wanted it to be. In the Ontario Amateur that year, he shot a 102. But fast forward just 2 years, and Moe was shooting in the 70s. What changed? He started to follow in the footsteps of other great ball strikers like Ben Hogan, who understood this key to getting better. Hit more balls than anybody else, outwork them on the practice range, outwork them on the course. Lloyd Tucker said, "No one approached golf as seriously as Moe. The other kids didn't work like Moe did." His game was getting good, and you may think that with a lower class upbringing, he would dream of making some money. But that wasn't the case. His ambitions were clear. Norman said, "I never dreamed of getting rich. All I tried to do was become the ball's best striker. I practiced, morning, noon, and night." He also had another motive. "I was alone. I had no support from my family. They discouraged me from following my dream. My friends laughed at me for playing a sissy game."
There's 6 kids in our family, mother and dad. They've never seen me hit a ball yet in real life. They've never were right beside me when I was hitting the golf ball.
Moe Norman was on a mission and was making small waves in local tournaments. The only question now is, can he start to win? In 1948, Moe would gain his first tournament victory. He and Jerry Kesselring captured the Ontario Junior Better Ball with a score of 68. Later that season was the Canadian Amateur held in Hamilton, Ontario. There's a wild story about this in the fantastic book, The Feeling of Greatness by Tim O'Connor. Moe was driving to the tournament with friends and their car broke down. They found the nearest gas station and asked the attendant if he would help them get there. The man looked out the window, nodded, and pointed at a dump truck. So the group got into the truck, with 2 golfers sitting in the front and 2 riding in the back. Just as the big rig arrived at the golf course, Moe's name was called. He didn't have any time to hit practice balls and could only grab his clubs from the rear and head to the first tee. His opponent that day said, "This boy jumps out of a dump truck, hits the ball as if he's only got a few seconds left to live, and knocks me out of the tournament on the 12th hole." The first solo tournament win would happen next year. After hitchhiking to St. Thomas Golf and Country Club, he paid the $3 entrance fee and signed the form simply as Moe. He fired a 67 and beat 3-time Ontario Amateur champion Jack Nash and Nick Westlock. During the award ceremony, Moe Norman was nowhere to be found. He was already heading home. This would be a common occurrence when Moe won tournaments. As to why, he said, "I was afraid someone would ask me a question that I didn't know, and I'd feel like a little kid. If I won, as soon as I signed my card, I couldn't wait to get away before some committee guy would try and get me." Some officials didn't believe his story and just thought he was rude. Weeks after his first win, he was victorious at the Twin Cities tournament in Kitchener and bested the field at Westmount. Moe Norman, the tournament winner, had arrived, and his legend was starting to grow. Part of that was due to his incredible ball striking skills, which were always on display, especially on par 4s when, just for fun, he would use a pitching wedge on the tee and hit driver off the deck for his second shot. The other part was his on-course antics. Nobody else was hitting balls off Coke bottles, high tees, or lying down in the grass when play slowed down. This gained him the nickname, the Clown Prince of golf. He had his fans, but he had his haters as well. Hecklers out on the course would get under his skin with one negative comment.
"Why don't you shut the hell up?"
More than spectators, some golf writers and committee members had considerable disdain for Moe. He was either the best or worst thing to happen in golf, depending on who you asked. In 1954, Jerry Kesselring turned pro. Norman's idol and biggest rival was gone. That year, he tore through the tournament scene, winning 16 out of 19 events. Because of his 1954 dominance, in 55, Moe entered the season as the #1 ranked amateur in Ontario. He blasted through the Brantford Golf and Country Club, shooting a 63 and setting the course record. He set his sights on the most significant event of the year, the Canadian Amateur. Moe got to the finals, where the match would be against Lyle Crawford, the man who beat Moe the previous year. Moe was 2 up with 3 holes to go, but Crawford tied it, sending the match to extras. On the 39th hole, Moe had a birdie putt to win. Slowly it went, rolling closer and closer to the hole until finally, it dropped. The guy many in the upper class of golf did not want to win won. Moe Norman was the Canadian amateur champion. Of course, the ceremony did not feature him. He was down at his peaceful hiding place by the river. Moe Norman was the busiest golfer in Canada. He was hitting upwards of 30 tournaments in a single year. Even so, he wanted to enter more but needed extra money. Being an amateur meant he won prizes, not cash. One TV set was great, but 8 of them? Not so much. He didn't need those 11 radios either, so Moe decided to sell his prizes. Often he would do this in broad daylight, right after the tournament. This practice of selling prizes for money happened all the time from other amateurs, but in secret. Occasionally, Norman would have the prize sold before the event was even played. I needed the money. I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. I'd sleep in bunkers, that's all I could afford. Legend says that Moe would often lose events on purpose to get a specific prize that would sell the best, which he denies. This habit of selling prizes angered the Royal Canadian Golf Association, but they decided to keep quiet for now. Around the same time, Moe Norman, the current Canadian amateur champion, received an envelope in the mail. Inside it was a letter. The letter was from Bobby Jones. It was an invitation to the 1956 Masters. The pin setter from Ontario was going to Augusta. In April of '56, Moe showed up at the beautiful Augusta National. At the start of the tournament, he was paired with the U.S. amateur champion, Harvey Ward. On the first tee, he was surrounded by thousands of fans. I was shaking like a leaf, but before they could say Moe Norman, bang, I hit it right down the middle. Moe was hitting fairway after fairway that day. Putting, though, that was a different story. He had 6 3-putts, but still shot a 75. Friday, he posted a 78 and was 18 shots back of the current leader, Ken Venturi. There were no cuts at the Masters that year, so Moe would play the weekend. After the round, he went to the range and worked on his game. Shot after shot eventually caught the attention of one of the best players in history, Sam Snead. Sam asked him how he got there, and he told him that he's the amateur champion of Canada. Sam then said he'd like to give him a tip. He told Norman he was coming down too steep on the ball with his long irons, and that the secret to hitting them is to hit them like a fairway would. After receiving that lesson from one of his favorite players, Moe worked at it right then and there, hitting ball after ball. His hands were burning, but he kept going. 50 turned into 100. 100 turned into 500. I got it, he yelled. 800 balls later, Moe went to bed. The next morning, his hands were destroyed, blistered, and cut up. For Saturday's round, he was paired with Vic Gezzi. By the 9th hole, he could barely hold up the club. Instead of going toward the 10th tee, he headed to the locker room. Gezzi told him, "This is the Masters, you play on one leg if you have to." But Moe didn't listen. He walked to the locker room, quickly cleaned it, and returned to Canada. Lorne Rubinstein wrote about this in a 1987 article. By taking the lesson at a critical time, he betrayed his fundamental problem. He didn't believe in his own ability to play against such competition. Rubinstein also mentions in his book how Snead may have done this purposefully. Of course, nobody knows for sure, and it wasn't like Moe was tearing up the tournament with low scores. What we do know, however, is Moe and Sam became friends. They played exhibitions together. There's even the famous bridge story, where both were playing a par 4. Moe avoided a creek that laid across the fairway by driving his ball straight at a bridge 240 yards away and had it roll over to the other side of the water. You may think Moe Norman would return home defeated after the experience in Georgia, but that wasn't the case. In 1956, he set 9 course records, shot 61 4 times, and won 17 out of 26 tournaments. He then appeared at the Canadian Amateur as defending champion, held at Fraser Edmundston Golf Club. The final pairing was Norman and Jerry McGee. Moe went into the afternoon round and posted 3 birdies and an eagle to beat McGee 5 and 4. Throughout 64 holes in the semi-final and final rounds, Moe shot 22 under, with only 1 bogey. Moe Norman was back-to-back Canadian amateur champion. In October 1956, an America's Cup match was to be held in Mexico. The tournament pitted the best amateur golfers representing their country from America, Canada, and Mexico against each other. Moe would take on Harvey Ward, the best amateur in the States. At the same time, though, rumors were circulating that the Royal Canadian Golf Association was checking into a pressing situation involving Moe. They already already knew he was selling his prizes, but now they heard that he was accepting appearance money to play in tournaments. An amateur status meant you couldn't receive any money for golf except from family members or legal guardians. Moe did admit to accepting these loans, but he said he paid most of it back. He claimed other amateurs were accepting money for travel. Nick Westlock agreed, and also states that he sold his prizes as well. Jim Anglin, then president of the RCGA, tried to reach Moe for an explanation, though Moe said he never received any phone call. On October 19th, Anglin suspended Moe Norman from the team. This meant the top Canadian amateur would not play in the event, and he would not go head-to-head against Harvey Ward. Canada got embarrassed at the America's Cup. Ward dominated, and Canada finished last place behind America and Mexico. It was the only time in the event's history that Mexico beat Canada on points. Moe Norman returned to Augusta the following year for his second Masters appearance, but this too would create a stir. He was striking the ball well but struggled with the putter again. He shot a 77-74 and would miss the weekend. What's more, Al Balding and Stan Leonard, two Canadian multi-time winners on the American Tour, believe that Moe Norman was the sole reason the Canadian PGA champion and the Canadian amateur winners stopped getting invited to the Masters. The story goes that Moe Norman slept on a bench at Augusta in 1957 to save himself the cost of a hotel room. Stan Leonard said the tournament officials took pity and let him sleep in the men's locker room, but him sleeping on the bench didn't endear him to the people he was trying to impress. Al Balding stated the CPGA invitation was taken back because of Moe. Dick Grimm, former RCGA president, also pointed the finger squarely at Norman, bringing up the previous year. People don't pull out of the Masters unless you're dying on the ground. I think the Augusta committee was very upset. It developed into a situation where you don't see many Canadians invited to the Masters. Interestingly, the CPGA champion was never listed as an automatic invite, but was only occasionally used as a special invitation. And to dispute Leonard and Balding's claims, those invitations to the Canadian amateur champ and CPGA champion weren't discontinued until 1967, 10 years after this claimed bench incident. The conclusive reason given as to why they were discontinued was that Augusta National was under strict pressure to make more room for the American Tour pros. This ends the major tournament history for Moe Norman, as he would never again play in one. He would, however, turn professional and try his hand on the big circuit. Although Balding and Leonard may have had bad feelings towards Norman, many other Canadian professional golfers appreciated Moe. George Knudsen was a fan and once said, "Moe Norman is second to none in ball striking."
It's just they don't want to see you be the best striker. Instead of praising us, saying you are the best, you and Knudsen, they wanted to downgrade us.
Sometimes they would go out and play golf together where there was no putting, just ball striking rounds, where it would cost them $20 for every green and fairway missed, and they received $100 for every flagstick hit. One day, Moe hit 6 of them. In 1958, Moe Norman was forced to turn professional after the RCGA threatened to revoke his amateur status. They even ensured turning pro would be a big headache for Moe and were reluctant to allow it to happen. But after pressure from the public and some golf professionals, Moe Norman received his pro card. He worked at the de Havilland Golf Center as an assistant pro, a massive double-decker driving range with a par 3 course, mini putt, and a 9-hole. Among other activities, Norman would teach there. There's a story of a man showing up for a lesson with Moe. He started to warm up by hitting a few balls. Moe saw how he was swinging, grabbed the golf club out of his hands, and said, "This is how you should do it." However, he never returned the club to him. The man watched Moe stripe golf balls for the rest of the lesson. Norman's first professional statement win would be the Ontario Open. Later on, he placed in a bursary tournament, allowing him to play on the Winter Tour in America. Moe's first PGA event was the LA Open. He was happy to be playing with his heroes like Ben Hogan and Sam Snead, but he was nervous and didn't play his best. He played in the Bing Crosby at Pebble Beach, San Diego, and Texas Open, to name a few. Then he arrived at the Greater New Orleans Open. He was in the final group and finished a respectable tied for 4th, but there was a problem. After the tournament, Moe drove to his friend Gus's house. Gus asked him what he was doing there. He should be at Pensacola getting ready to play. Norman said he'd never play on the tour again. Gus said, "Moe wouldn't tell me what happened, but I heard the story from other golf professionals. After the round, 2 PGA pros confronted Moe in the locker room and told him to clean himself up, to get some dental work done, no more antics, and to stop showboating. The information about who cornered Moe in the locker room has been kept secret. Somewhere somebody knows, but they aren't talking." Most accounts say after New Orleans, Moe never played on the PGA Tour again, but a deleted page on PGAtour.com showed records of Norman going to Pensacola and even some events in the States the following year. Whatever the case, after 1960, Moe Norman never again played on the PGA Tour. His fans say it was all down to the bullying he received, and it did seem like he was posting better rounds in America with each tournament. Others claim he just didn't have what it took. Norman's issue was not hitting golf balls in front of a big crowd, nor was it his ability to shoot low rounds or win tournaments. He did that all the time. His issue was playing against competition that he deeply respected. For as much confidence as he had, it seemed to disappear while playing against his idols. Just like that, Moe Norman was finished in America, and all that was left were discussions of what could have been. For the rest of his professional golf career, Moe played in Canada, usually around Ontario. He set course records, winning small pro events and making decent money, which he kept as cash since he only opened his first bank account when he was 65. For Norman, playing golf in Canada was comfortable, as was going to Florida during the winter months. Even though Moe's talents were kept to the people who saw him play in Florida or Canada, he thrilled whoever got the chance to watch his ball striking. Golf writer, author, and traveler Brian Kendall, who runs a great website on golf courses and stories, link in the description, wrote about a story told to him by his good friend Doug Robb. This happened during a practice round before a tournament in Calgary. The 12th hole, a par 5, had a power line running above the fairway, about 160 yards from the tee. Moe took out his driver and winged the ball off the power line. He then teed it up and did it again. He then hit the power line a third time. It wasn't even as if Moe was trying to hit the power line, Doug says. It was just that his swing was so grooved that each ball took off on exactly the same trajectory. After he hit his third ball, Moe put the driver back in his bag and took out a 3-wood. This time the ball missed the power line. Moe turned to Doug and said, "Well, I guess this is a 3-wood shot." Norman would continue this cycle of competing, winning golf tournaments in Canada, and spending his winters in Florida. He sometimes slept in a cheap motel, in his car, or on a golf course. Even with all the uncertainty of where his next meal would come from, records show Moe Norman won 55 events in Canada, although many believe it's higher than that. As Moe aged, his love for golf did not waver. Nothing overtook his passion for the game. His dating life was non-existent, but good friends and supporters surrounded him, one of them being Paul Berthley, a golfing genius in his own right. Berthley was big into the mental side of the game. He was quoted as saying, "The number one enemy of playing golf is mental tension. The father of mental tension is imprecise thinking." Moe had precise thinking, no question about that, which got more precise as he got into the world of personal development, which you'll see he consumed when you watch his interviews.
This can't make $500,000 a year. This can. That's peanuts. If you got
competition was still a big part of his lifestyle. There was no greater example of this than his winning 6 consecutive senior CPGA championships. From 1979 to 1985, he won it again in 1987. That victory would be his last recorded professional win. I mentioned earlier that he never again played on the men's US Tour, but he did play on the US Men's Senior Tour. Moe played in 4 seasons, but only 5 events total, with a top 3 and 2 top 10 finishes. After his tournament career, Moe wasn't sure what to do to make money. A new opportunity came after a chance meeting with Jack Kirkendall. Jack founded Natural Golf in the late 80s and developed a style of swinging the club similar to Moe Norman's. He met with Moe in 1994 and a partnership was founded. Natural Golf would host clinics where Norman hit balls straight as an arrow for hours. Word spread about this ball-striking maestro, and the company grew. By 1998, it took off with a $15 million revenue. There was a love-hate relationship with natural golf for some people regarding their selling of products that many claimed were unnecessary. However, not only did they provide Moe with the perfect opportunity to do what he loved, but because many of these clinics were recorded, we get to watch him hit golf balls today. They are some of the only videos of Moe Norman available, and his abilities would not be as widely known or respected without Jack Kirkendall and natural golf. So, how did Moe Norman swing the club? First, his backswing was much longer when he was younger, as seen on Greg Laverne's website and old video clips. With natural golf, Moe used a 10-finger grip and held the club in the palm of the trail hand. But he didn't do that when he was winning tournaments. The following recording was from the 1960s.
You can't demonstrate the grip on radio, but how would you explain it?
Well, like they say, you're supposed to see 3 knuckles. Definitely palm and finger grip on the left hand, and strictly a finger grip on the right hand.
Moe stands straight and extends his arms out to the ball. The reason for that is,
I'm the only person that's got more freedom with my arms. If I'm this far out, I can't. It's much easier to do if you're in here where you can.
he starts the club back away from the ball because it, in his words, eliminates the first inch of the swing, keeps the club as low as it can go, makes it so he can't take the club to the outside, and
my right shoulder is already in my turn. Look, now look.
His downswing is a dynamic, efficient movement that protects the body and produces jaw-dropping results. His close personal friend, Lauren Rubenstein, explains why Moe hit balls incredibly fast.
One of the problems with golf and golfers is they play too slowly and you're thinking too much. Well, Moe just walked up to the ball, hit it, went ahead and played. So the very psychological liability that he had, being uncomfortable and really introverted around people, maybe was an asset to him in terms of playing the game because he could play it so quickly.
It has its doubters, though. Bob Toski, a former PGA Tour pro and instructor, said, Moe's swing isn't fundamentally sound. He gets away with it because of intuition and instinct. Everyone's favorite person, Brandel Chambly, commented, Moe Norman's swing is the most overrated. However, some of history's best ball strikers marvel at Moe Norman's abilities.
Ask Lee Trevino if you don't believe Norman.
You ask any golf professional, whether you're in Australia or whether you're in your US or whether you're in Great Britain, and you say, that's the Canadian guy that hits it so damn good, isn't it? And I says, that's him. He's a legend with the professionals.
In 1995, Moe met Wally Uline, the Titleist chairman and CEO, would sign Moe Norman to a lifetime contract where Titleist would pay him $5,000 monthly just for being who he is. Lauren Rubenstein interviewed Mr. Uline and he said, Moe was the only golfer we ever tested at Titleist who produced zero side spin on the ball. There's a few other people who are associated with teaching Moe Norman's swing. Todd Graves, who worked alongside Moe Norman with natural golf. He was even called Little Moe before he left the company. He left because, as time went on, natural golf began to focus more on selling golf clubs instead of focusing on the swing mechanics behind Moe's genius. In 2011, Graves purchased the assets of natural golf and rebranded it as the single plane swing. He reverted some aspects of what Moe did in his playing career. For example, going from the 10-finger grip style of natural golf to the overlap and putting the club in the fingers of the trail hand versus the palm. Greg Laverne, the guy mentioned earlier, who Moe taught during his years in Florida, wrote several books on what he learned from Norman. This would cause issues as Graves would sue Laverne over the right to use Moe Norman's name in his books. Greg was forbidden from using the Moe Norman trademark or speaking/implying any affiliation with the Moe Norman estate, but he was allowed to continue selling his books. Jack Kirkendall posts videos about Moe and his method to this day, and he even fires shots at the single plane swing. Hell, near the end, Moe worked alongside famous golf instructor Manuel de la Torre.
More arm swing then?
Sure, faster. My arm's faster.
Where'd you get this from, Moe?
Manuel de la Torre.
Manuel de la Torre.
Best teacher, one of the best in the world ever. No, they could make me better before. This guy has.
Moe had a heart attack in 1997. He then suffered heart failure and underwent double bypass surgery a few months later. 6 months after that, Moe Norman was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. He continued with golf despite these health setbacks, still smashing balls down the range. Sadly, in September 2004, at the age of 75, Moe Norman died. The The cause of death was a heart attack that he had while inside an ambulance. After hearing the news of his passing, a friend of Moe's rushed to his car. Inside, they found 1,000 Titleist golf balls, multiple sets of irons, and $20,000 in cash. The world of golf lost a genius, someone in total control of his swing. I called Moe the most interesting man because of his swing, his personality, his habits, like drinking 25 Cokes a day, and because of the thousands of stories we've heard across the internet, even though we aren't sure how true some of these tales are.
I still hear stories about me that have never happened to me. And people just want to hear themselves talk about me.
However, what's fascinated me the most about Mr. Norman is his golfing mind. Former PGA Tour winner and fellow Canadian Ian Leggett explains it best.
He put the mind before the sort of the physical component. And I think that's the reason why he was so great. I saw Moe hit lots of bad shots, but he just never gave it any presence. He didn't give it any value. He just moved on. The way that he saw the game was so much different than everybody else.
Debate still rages on about whether Moe Norman was the best striker in history or what success he could have had if there was more of a support system to help him in America. But nobody can debate what Moe Norman meant to those who knew him, nor can it be debated that he was great in the eyes of many touring pros. Tiger Woods putting his name next to Hogan's. Vijay Singh, who profoundly respected Norman, said he was God's gift to golf. Nick Price said Moe had as much or more control over the ball than anyone I ever saw. Slamming, Sammy Snead praised him as having the best hands in the game. Ken Venturi claimed, "I'd give Moe 3 strokes aside just to watch him hit a golf ball." Moe never got the respect he deserved until later in life, and thankfully, through the works of guys like Todd Graves, Jack Kirkendall, Tim O'Connor, Lorne Rubinstein, Greg Laverne, Kirk Junge, Craig Shanklin, and others, his legacy will live on forever. There's an upcoming documentary on his life called The Feeling of Greatness, and a Moe Norman major motion picture in production. Most historians say Moe's putting wasn't up to par. Like George Knudsen, Moe's desires were much more straightforward than becoming the best player. He said, "The only thing I ever wanted to do was become the best ball striker in the world." And to the many people who watched him hit balls in person, he was. He went into golf as an outsider who didn't fit in, but he was never meant to. He carved his path, developed his way of playing the game, and when it was all said and done, Moe Norman left his mark on the golfing world.
I'm always told, keep it simple, stupid. I'm the only guy that passes with honors. Look how simple I keep it.